Hello everyone, I'm Claire Davis for Mental Health Chats, and we are continuing the series on grieving. So I'd like to welcome Anne Allen. Hello Anne, how are you?
I'm well, thank you, Claire. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And Anne's going to continue the series. Anne is an advanced grief recovery specialist, and she's going to be talking to us today about understanding grief. So first of all, Anne, would you like to tell everyone where you're based today?
I'm based in Vancouver, Washington, USA.
Excellent, lovely. So can you tell us what you do as an advanced grief recovery specialist?
Sure, I'd love to. So basically, I get you out of your sadness and back into your life again. It's very easy for us to get stuck in our grief and really not know how to move forward. So I deal in recovery and moving forward in a way that allows us to keep the fond memories and not have those little triggers that kind of take us down a rabbit hole. They just keep us stuck in painful memories and regrets.
Ah, very interesting. So why do you do what you do, Anne?
This is going to sound very strange, but there's a magic that happens when I work with people who come to me, and oftentimes they come and they say, I really don't know what I'm going to do. You're kind of like my last hope. I don't know if you're a Star Wars person, but there's a line where Princess Leia says to Obi-Wan Kenobi, help us, you're our last hope. That's kind of how I feel sometimes when they come to me. And I do it because I see people blossom. I see people get their lives back. I see them get a purpose back for their lives. I get them that they redefine their lives. My most recent case, I had a wonderful lady who was just absolutely devastated by the death of her husband, and she really had no idea what she was going to do or even who she was. And it helped to put her at a place where she was literally standing on the threshold of a new life with her new identity. And it is such a gift to be able to see them go from that space of despair and just really not knowing what to do next to opening up their whole lives. So, a little bit more than a nutshell, but that's why I do it. I love it.
Brilliant. And I love the sparkle in your eye when you're talking about it. You're so obviously so passionate about it, and you love helping people get to that next stage, really.
Yeah.
So what is grief? How would you define grief?
Oh boy, and thank you for asking that question, because a lot of people get a little bit confused about what grief really is. Most people look at it from terms of death, dying, bereavement, something being taken away. And there are a couple of definitions that I like to use, and there's many definitions for grief, but grief, the one that I like to use is the change of, I beg your pardon, that's loss. I want to talk about that in a moment. But grief is the normal and natural emotional reactions we have to any kind of loss that's significant to us. So let me just state that last bit again. It is the normal and natural emotional reaction we have to any loss that is significant to us. And that is the key, because a lot of people don't realize that we can grieve over something that doesn't necessarily seem important to someone else, but is extremely important to us. So let me give you an example. Let's say you've been back to the old country and you bought a little pebble from your great-grandmother's grave. And that meant all the world to you, but somebody thought it was just a pebble and threw it out. Now, that might mean nothing to someone, but it could be absolutely devastating to you.
Yeah, very interesting. So we're talking a lot about death in this series and grieving with relation to death, but we do need to understand, obviously, that grief can apply to any loss.
Oh my goodness, yes. And we have over 42 different types of losses in our lives, believe it or not. And unfortunately, by the time you get to our ages, you've had at least 9 very significant losses in your life. And so now I'll give you the definition of what loss is. Again, there's many different definitions, but I really like this one because I think it kind of narrows it down, helps us to have a little bit more perspective. So loss is considered the change in or end of a familiar behavior or pattern related to a person, place, or thing. So it's a very long-winded way of saying that anytime our identity is changed, anytime our routine is changed, anytime something in our life that is significant that is changed, we will feel it as a loss, and for every loss that is significant, we will grieve. So, for example, we've got loss of jobs, we've got loss of financial income, we've got loss of country. Think of the refugees that have to leave their country, their beloved homeland, because it's no longer safe there, which brings me to loss of safety, loss of trust, loss of faith, loss of childhood, all of these things. And then, of course, people who go into the early stages of dementia, their loved ones are left behind with grieving the relationship that once was. And then, of course, when unfortunately they pass, now they're left with grieving for the person as well. So hopefully that gives people an idea that loss and grief are just so much more than death and dying.
They are definitely. So let's think about a loss here, and
Sure.
we talk about 3 ways that we can understand grief with somebody who has gone through a loss. We can give some takeaways to everyone. What do we need to understand about grief?
Well, first of all, everybody is different. And I want people to really understand that every relationship is unique, no exception. And a little quick example, when my mother died, my brother's mother died. What does that mean? Same woman, died the same day, obviously, but we both had a totally different way of reacting to that. So my brother is, he did his own thing, I did my own thing, and he probably couldn't understand why, why I did what I did, and I maybe wasn't understanding why he did what he did.
Yeah.
So, everybody's going to react differently to grief. There is not a timeline. It doesn't go in a linear fashion.
Yeah.
It's kind of like an onion, if you will, taking off all the layers of the onion, getting down to the root cause, because at the end of the day, grief is really all about undelivered communications, the things we wish had been different, better, more, hopes, dreams, and expectations that weren't realized, the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. Oh my God, if only I had have. And a lot of people, unfortunately, they don't get to say goodbye. And let's look at the loss of relationships. Let's look at, let's say a relationship has ended and you're still left with all the feelings from that relationship that can't be fulfilled. You might still have a desire for someone, you might still want to be with them, even though for whatever reason that can no longer happen. The same as when somebody suddenly dies. You may not have told them how much you love them, and you have these longings, you have these yearnings, and people will step in and they will try and fix us by using cliches that simply don't work.
That's something I often say. We can't fix someone. We can support them, but we can't fix them.
Exactly.
So everyone's different. It's not a timeline. We can't fix someone. Any other tips that you've got?
Well, I like to talk about the 6 myths of grieving. And they're things, they're just basically cliches that people have used over the years, because, where honestly do we learn how to help people grieve? We learn from what we've seen. Nobody really takes us aside and says, okay, you're going to have a grief class today. I don't think anyone would probably turn up, but we say things like, don't feel bad. Why not? Your heart's broken. Of course you should feel bad. Time heals all wounds. Be strong. Keep busy, do something. So there's all of these things that we say, well, intellectually they may be true, but emotionally they don't help us one little bit. And what they do, they really force us into a place of trying to accept what we really can't wrap our heads around just yet, because we haven't had time to get into any of it. And we end up going around saying things like, I'm fine, because we're tired of people trying to tell us what to do or how to feel, instead of accepting or understanding the fact that we really have some things that we need to express or to think through and feel through.
Yeah, definitely. That's very good advice, actually, Anne. Thank you very much. So we've got some great advice there, and you've been very, very open. And I think one of the difficulties with grief is that people aren't open. And that's one of the reasons why I've started Mental Health Chat, so that people start talking about these things, start talking about their emotions. You use the word emotion there, and our feelings. So thank you very much. And it's being patient, supporting people, and understanding that every single person is different with their emotions.
Right. So we just need to listen.
Listening is such a good tool, and we're not taught it in school, unfortunately.
No, it takes us out of our comfort zone, and that's the hardest part to support a griever, is because we get out of our comfort zone, and you know, it's really not about us, it's about them.
It is. Thank you very much. So we're on to our final chat next week on grieving, and we've got Benny back, and Benny is going to tell us some interesting facts and insights into grieving. So thank you very much, Anne. And Anne is able to be contacted on LinkedIn, so I'll put her link to LinkedIn there. So thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.